All right, welcome everyone. We're here live on location at Busan International Film Fest, BIFF, and I'm here with one of the directors of the best movie I've seen so far, and wanted to kind of get his time, and I'm really grateful for his time. He's got a ton of press he's doing here, but he took some time out of his schedule to discuss the topic of your movie. So, Miki, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
So if you want to just do a brief introduction, and we'll get into it.
My name is Miki. I made this film called Shusenjo, the main battleground of the comfort woman issue, and it's about the comfort woman issue. For people who don't know about that, it's basically comfort women refers to women who are used by Japanese soldiers as what some people think on the Japanese right-wing side as prostitutes, and the Koreans believe that they were sex slaves. So comfort women is actually the most neutral term to use. So this film is about kind of the political, historical debates that are going on with the issue. There have actually been many documentaries on the comfort women, mainly on the testimonies of the women, which are really important. But at this point right now, many Japanese people don't believe these testimonies, so they don't care to watch these types of films. And so I felt it was necessary to make a film that kind of tackled the I guess what some say the logical arguments.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, it's a long 2-hour film on.
Went by very fast, though.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
it
really
okay.
did.
Yeah.
Especially for documentaries, you know. Like I think the way that you edited it, you had a lot of different. It just moved along very fast. You know, like
wow,
it was just like, you know, not a lot of long dialogues, but you just had so many. Resources that you shared, and can tell you put a ton of research into it.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm curious how long. I was going to ask.
Yeah,
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say like 1 year of research and then 2 years of shooting or anything. It was just a constant research process.
Yeah.
While also interviewing, and at the end, I edited it in basically 2 months. It took 2 months. Locked myself in my room basically and did the editing. Yeah.
For 2 months. Wow.
Yeah, I was in physical pain basically.
Jeez.
Because I was not like doing physical exercise like I usually do. And stuff like that.
Well, speaking of the physical pain, what really kind of spoke to me, and that was really, you know, not so much shock. Well, it was shocking actually, but really interesting, was the emotional pain that you went through with all the feedback from people that were literally kind of threatening you and your life, and it was like a pretty intense. Because when you get governments involved and you get really strong political opinions and
Well, actually,
the topic of sex,
I mean, well, okay, so the attacks are probably going to come now.
Now that it's released.
The attacks from before were from my YouTube video.
Right, because before you said that you were a YouTuber. So what were you kind of doing on YouTube to create that?
Well, I started out making comedy videos.
Okay.
So I have a few comedy videos out there.
Do you want to share your channel?
Sure, it's Medama Sensei, Medama Sensei.
I'll link it up in the description here.
Yeah, and then so I used to make comedy videos, and that's how I got some popularity. They had about, you know, hundreds of thousands of views.
Sure.
Those videos, and then from that, my goal in the end was to kind of talk about social issues in Japan, and so, you know, with that audience, I kind of pivoted and started talking about the first video, I believe, was I interviewed a friend who was gay in Japan, and I think it was one of the first videos on YouTube of a gay man in Japan talking about his life, and how hard it is and stuff like that. That got a little bit of backlash. Yeah. But yeah, it was the racism in Japan one that really went nuts. Like they had it's like Washington Post started interviewing me, ABC News from Australia interviewed me for a radio. Yeah, it was like crazy.
And how long ago was this before you? And then that was before you started on this movie project.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that. I think in like 2013, and then this movie project started in 2015.
Okay.
And in between that, wait, no, yeah, 2000. I was a monk in between there somewhere.
We'll get to that because that's a story I want to hear about. We'll definitely get to that.
That was like a year in Thailand, and then I did 2 years in grad school in Tokyo.
Okay.
While I was shooting the film and researching.
Right. And talking about the pushback, like me as a foreigner living in Asia for about 7-8 years, I didn't really know much about the history. I knew that there was tension between Japan and Korea.
Right.
I didn't know why or what was really the underlying issues of it. So me watching your film, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to put the pieces together. And how has the response been from Koreans and what's kind of the take on?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on where people fall on the political spectrum, I guess.
Yeah.
So I've had some private screenings in Korea and Japan at universities, and yeah, I mean, actually, even right-wingers tend to appreciate the balance of the film,
right?
Because they
do a good job. It's not like totally. Yeah, it's well presented.
Yeah, they they appreciate that, I think, more than other films in the past that have been solely very left wing and never presenting the counter arguments and stuff like that. So they like that. I actually had a Japanese student, university student, say that it was the first time he had ever heard the left-wing side, because the mainstream in Japan right now is the right-wing arguments. Do you
want to maybe just do a quick summary of the history of the political side, who's the left, who's the right, what's their take, just people who aren't myself that weren't familiar with it before?
So right now, I would say the Liberal Democratic Party, which it sounds liberal, but it's the LDP. They're actually the right wing. And then I guess the terms are kind of difficult because when you say left wing, it refers to kind of more extremist left.
Sure.
So I wouldn't want to say that, but it tends to be, there is a kind of fragmented opposition party in Japan, but it's not very strong, and it's mixed in with the Communist Party, but I would say Communist Party in Japan isn't like the communists that you would think of. They're more just, they're probably your left wing in the US or Canada,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of create that contrast there.
Right.
And the thing that really shocked me was the volume and numbers of women that were apparently involved. They were saying up to 200,000.
Right.
But there was also discrepancies there as far as what was really, but still 200,000. Even if it was what they said, 40,000, that's still a ton of women being.
So yeah, that's the thing with the numbers. They're used very politically, and I would say that interestingly, the most famous conservative historian, I think his first estimate in the 90s was 90,000, and then now he's dropped it down over the years as he's become more and more right wing.
Okay.
Man, I want to say he said 13,000 or something like that, at really low number.
Yeah.
So it's why did he change that? It doesn't make sense because there hasn't been any more new information as to how you estimate it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's based off of that ratio of 100 to 1 or 29 to 1.
Yeah, that was an interesting breakdown. And for people who haven't seen it, not really sure what they're talking about with these women, are women from Korea that were brought to Japan to be basically used and exploited.
Not brought to Japan. Brought in the battlefields.
Oh, the battlefields. I'm sorry.
All over Asia.
All over Asia. Okay, yeah, because I remember seeing the map and it was Okinawa, so that was just some of the bases then.
Right. All over.
All over.
East Asia.
used for the soldiers sexually. So yeah, very intense.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's a really controversial topic in Japan and Korea, I think.
Yeah.
And if you start talking about the comfort women issue, people will kind of like feel you out.
Yeah.
Like based off of like what words you use.
Okay.
So like if you say sex slave, then they'll be like, oh, okay. If you're talking to a Korean person, they'll be like, okay, he's on our side.
Oh yeah, I see.
But if you're like comfort women, and then maybe you lean towards saying that they might be prostitutes or something, then they'll be like, oh, this guy's right wing.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the thing that we were kind of talking about before was how the Japanese government is literally kind of, I don't want to say strong arm, but taking or attempting to take that out of the history books.
They already have.
And they have. So that was like the big thing that was happening there. So
Yeah. So that's been going on since 1997. And now it's in 2012 they had completely erased it. Now I think in 2017 there's one textbook that kind of mentions it, but it's like nothing, really. So it's just an ongoing history battle, battle of like memory.
Right.
What you choose to decide, or like what you decide to remember is really important.
One thing that's really interesting that just came up in a project I was affiliated with last year, that Wikipedia, they were trying to put all Wikipedia history onto a blockchain where it can't be edited. Like once that's uploaded, you can't go back and re-edit or take things out. And I think that the future of information will be blockchain based, and it will kind of stop governments to be able to go back and change and edit history. So that was an interesting project. I was kind of
that would be interesting, just because I'm not totally against changing history based off of new information.
Yeah.
And the thing is that that's the right-wing historical revisionist argument. They're saying, well, we have new information, and that's why we're changing history.
Right.
But the problem is that the information that they have that's new, it's not new. Historians have actually known about it.
Right.
It's just that they're cherry picking certain things and creating a narrative.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Historians have kind of known about the revisionist arguments for a while. They just couldn't be bothered with it because, they're scholars and they're writing books.
Academia, let's pivot for a second. How does one go ahead and create a movie or a film and get into a festival like this? Like for people that are wanting to have an idea like you, and they were like, hey, I want to get this out. What's that process like? Like I was just talking to a guy earlier before this movie, an Indian director or producer from India, and he just got his movie financed for Netflix or something.
Oh.
I'm gonna follow up with him. I didn't. It was a quick conversation. He gave me his card. And he's like, because I'm gonna do an interview with him about that as well, because I want to learn how he got onto Netflix basically, and what that process is like. But for you, like, what was the process to get into a featured film festival like this?
Yeah. So I mean, as an independent filmmaker, I didn't have any financial backing from anywhere, and that was important for this film in particular, because I didn't want anybody to influence the film. So I did crowdfunding.
Oh, cool.
And it was on a shoestring budget.
Can I ask how much was raised?
26,000.
Wow.
I think.
Awesome.
But Kickstarter takes like 10%, so I ended up getting like 23 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's really not enough for a film.
Yeah, especially 3 years of your life going into it. So what were you doing, really, I guess, professionally or for your
I was in
career?
grad school.
Okay.
So luckily I had a scholarship at the time.
Yeah.
And was living off of that, and then the Kickstarter money was helping with the film.
Got it.
But yeah, like the process of getting from starting to getting to here is a super long process.
Yeah.
It's actually a lot more challenging than I expected it, or
I bet, yeah.
I probably should have I underestimated how much work it is actually.
Sure. Yeah.
And
It's like any kind of new endeavor, you know. Like
If you
people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start a business, you know, and then just like
I mean, if you
6 months later, you're just like,
if you see the credits of the film, it's like,
oh, it's crazy.
Mickey.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I didn't know, I had to do it myself because I didn't know that even had to be done.
Yeah.
And then
There's
I had to
so
like
much
learn
behind
how
the
to do it.
scenes. Yeah,
So for instance, I think I mentioned this in the talk, but you make a film on Premiere or like some editing software, and you export it as like an MP4 or something like that, right?
Okay.
Or a MOV file. That cannot be played in a movie theater.
Huh.
You have to make a thing called DCP, which is digital cinema projection, I think, and that is also a digital file, but it costs, if you ask somebody to do it, it ranges from $1,000 to $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the money to
Yeah.
do that, so but you can do it yourself.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of research and figuring it out. It actually takes a long time to convert. So taking the MP4 MOV file, it takes 10 hours on your computer to convert. So you just have to like let your computer run,
Do its thing,
which
yeah.
I was like so anxious about because we have earthquakes in Japan. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm running like spinning disks, you know, like
Yeah.
hard drives, and if it shakes, it can scratch and then fail.
Wow.
You know, so I'm like sitting, like almost like sitting there for
Pacing,
10 hours.
yeah. Wow.
Each time.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you can't test the DCP on your computer.
You have to film it in a theater, kind of.
I rented a theater 3 times
Oh wow. That's crazy.
to test if it works.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how much does it cost to rent a theater? Out of curiosity. You have to buy out all the seats or something.
A small one? No, it's a really small theater.
Okay.
It was only $100 an hour,
Okay.
but
Had do
to
it a couple times.
maximize that time, I would cut up my film to see different parts of it.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
To make sure the
everything's
colors are
okay,
good
yeah.
and then the sound is good. And yeah, I had to rent it 3 times because the first time was for the picture,
Yeah.
and the other 2 times were for the sound.
Got it.
So yeah, that's just that in itself. It's called DCP Mastering.
Yeah.
That's a job.
Well,
That's somebody's job, and I had to like learn how to do that before I got here. So I
Yeah.
thought I would be done making the film.
yeah. And then
that'd
just
be
just
it.
like, you know, send it as a Dropbox file. Here's
Yeah,
the here.
whatever,
Yeah.
And then they say like, no, you need to make a DCP, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Google.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I made a DCP once, and then I realized, well, they sent me an email here, and they were like, it has to be in 5.1 surround. I filmed in stereo, and
Okay.
so you need a special converter to convert it to 5.1, and that was insanely difficult
Yeah.
because sound is really, really. That's why every like forum you go on, they're like, hire a sound guy.
Yeah.
If you ask them how to like do it, they're just
Right.
like hire
yeah,
a sound
just,
guy.
Yeah, do yourself a favor. Yeah.
So
I can
luckily
only-
it turned out well.
I can only imagine, like, I don't hardly do any editing on this new YouTube channel because I've tried it and I'm just like, no, I'm just going raw with it because it's just, it's so much.
It's a lot of hours.
It's so much.
But, you know, the end result, like me and my assistant producer were watching it the first night, and we were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, it's not...
It's worth it.
Well, it didn't fail or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
you know, like all that work.
Yeah.
You know, and we're now
Thankfully.
finally seeing it on the big screen, and like people are watching it
And loving it.
know,
You got
thanks.
great feedback, like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like people at the show I was at, like everyone ovation, and it's really, really good. It was cool that history teacher brought his whole class there too.
Yeah, that was really cool. The French guy.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of look at what you talked about in the beginning, what you mentioned about your monk life, because that's something I'm like super interested in.
Okay.
And like, how did that come about? Because I've done Vipassana 10-day silent meditation retreats multiple times.
Right. Okay.
And like, I'm like
You're talking
super.
about Goenka?
Sorry?
Are you talking about Goenka retreats?
The one I did was Vipassana.
Right, but
Vipassana.
the guy's name is Goenka.
Oh,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've done it?
Yeah.
Vipassana,
yeah.
okay.
It's like everybody who's serious about meditation should
Does.
do a 10-day
Yeah.
Goenka retreat.
So what was so you were there for a year in Thailand,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And what was that process like? Like just like
well,
that's something I would love to do.
Before going to Thailand, I worked in Japan as a teacher, and I chose Japan because I wanted to go to Thailand like on my breaks.
Oh yeah.
To kind of feel it out.
Sure.
So over 5 years, I would go to different temples and feel out the temples, and they would feel me out, I guess, to see if I was a good fit for that temple. And then, I mean, actually, maybe I should go back a little bit. I was a pre-med major in university, and I was going to go to medical school, but decided not to because I wanted to be a monk. And then my mom was super pissed about that. She didn't want that at all. And then what happened was she was like, well, you should live in the world at least as a regular person, so you know the struggles of a regular person, so that if you were to help somebody, you would know what they're going through, I guess. So that was, I think, her little kind of way of keeping me in the world still, and at the same time hoping maybe I'd find like a girlfriend, or, you know, and then like forget the whole monk thing, you know. But over the years, I still like knew I wanted to be a monk, and then after the 5 years in Japan, I became a monk. At a temple that I had kind of visited off and on through that, or while I was in Japan.
What was the hardest part or the biggest challenge of becoming a monk?
Becoming a monk is not difficult.
Yeah.
It's staying there every day. It's very, very intense.
Yeah.
Like I was in the mountains of Chiang Mai in the forest, basically. So it was only 6 monks in my temple, and it's, you know, you don't have music, you don't have TV to watch, you know, like there's no running away from yourself. All the demons.
Yourself, right.
So it's just a very intensive kind of atmosphere to be in, and it's romanticized, and I think even me, I think I had some kind of romantic view of it as well at the beginning, but living in the forest is hard.
I could do it if it was around the water and ocean, but being separated from that, I think that would be one of my most, like, I love the water, like just going in. Like,
I mean, what I meant by hard is that everything in the forest wants to kill you.
Oh, you're thinking,
There's snakes, I got bit by something, I don't know what it was, but I went into anaphylactic shock. So I'm not allergic to bees, but I got stung by something, and then I went into anaphylactic shock.
And it's not like there's a hospital at the end of the block there. Like
no, it took like an hour to get there. Luckily, I don't know how, but like there was a nurse who was doing her own like personal retreat at the temple.
Oh, okay, wow.
And she recognized it. She's like, yeah, you're going into anaphylactic shock. You should go see it. And then like my windpipe was closing and stuff.
Scary. And that's where you talked about your near-death experience. Like after that, you kind of look at things differently.
Well, not just that, but I was actually meditating on death for a long time, and then that happened, and so just kind of death is always there in the wilderness. You know, like you see things die. You realize you can die as well, having those experiences. And it's just I don't know, kind of this natural part of life that you have to face, that us in the West never really look at, you know.
Well, I'll share this with you. 2 weeks ago, I was in the emergency room. I couldn't breathe. I choked on. I was just at home Sunday night, 11 o'clock, having a late dinner, and watching Netflix. Next thing I know, I can't breathe. I had a huge fishbone lodged in my throat, and I just panicked, and my literally scooter saved my life, because I grabbed my keys, jetted out, jumped on my scooter, and I just ripped to the hospital that's luckily at the end of my block, basically, like a couple blocks, like under a 5-minute drive away. And I went in like this. It threw me out and shoved something down my throat, pulled it out. It's like the scariest thing I went through, man. This is like 2 weeks ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially since, you know, if you don't have that much breath, you're
No, I could only get a little bit of breath. I couldn't breathe through my mouth at all. I could just take a little bit of breath through my nose.
Right.
So like, and you can't really breathe. Like try doing that. It's hard.
Right. So you're getting weaker and weaker as you're trying to get to the hospital.
And I was doing research. Choking is the 4th cause of death it's like number one is like, cancer, and then car accidents, and fourth is just people alone choking to death.
You know what's interesting is like when you think about death, oftentimes we think about how you kind of imagine how you would die or want to die.
Yeah.
And it's always this excuse me, it's always this very egotistical thing actually. So you want to die with your loved ones around you or something, or like maybe gloriously, like a martyr,
right. Yeah.
But the reality is you could die in a very, very embarrassing way.
Yeah. Like, it's funny because I've traveled to about like 35 countries, been in a lot of near-death experiences just through like extreme lifestyle living. And I was like, this fish bone this little thing could have killed me after everything else I've done, like craziness, like surfing massive waves, bungee
Which
jumping,
would have been
all
cool.
this stuff.
It would have been cool. They would have been like, oh, that guy, he died, but man, the wave was
Yeah,
awesome.
exactly. But with this, it was like a little bone. It was like embarrassing, actually.
Yeah.
But
no, I thought about that actually when I was in Thailand. They have these big water buffalo, and there was some kind of like festival or something of like lights or whatever. Like they light so the community came to the temple. And
is it the lantern they light up and they put it
not
up
the
in
ones
the air?
that go up. They were going into the water.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I've seen that before, actually.
It was a different one. Yeah. So we go from the temple to we go through like these rice paddies, and then there's like a little river, and in the rice paddies are water buffalo just kind of hanging out, and we have lights and we have flashlights, to get around because it's pitch black.
Yeah,
like
for sure, in the middle of the And
I shine the light because I didn't know what was on my left, and I kind of shine my light on this water buffalo, and it's like creeping up, and it looks pissed. These things are they look like cars. I mean, they're the size of cars.
I've seen real buffalo,
Trucks.
like bison in Canada.
But
I've never seen a water buffalo,
like
but I can
really,
imagine. Yeah.
They got these sharp, kind of horns.
Jeez,
and I was like, I could die.
Yeah.
I could die by getting impaled by a water buffalo.
Jeez.
As a monk. What a way
as
to
a
go.
monk, yeah.
How do you explain it to your mom?
How fitting that would be, because you're there meditating on death.
Yeah.
As part of your practice. Well, what did you with that? What did you kind of come to your realization of your intention of focusing on death and afterlife and?
What did I realize after meditating on death? I don't know if it's like a realization per se. It's more of kind of acceptance or comfort, with death, and kind of like a understanding of what it might mean to die and why, or what it means kind of to live as well in a certain sense, because in one of my meditations that I had, I went and I felt I was meditating on death, and I felt this very strong desire to hold on to life. I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't willing to let go of my life. And I wonder, the Buddha, says basically, it's your desire that causes suffering, and all these things. And basically, the reason why you're born is because you have this desire to live. And I wonder if that was the feeling I was having, was that fundamental desire to want to live. And
I think that's basic human nature,
yeah, but it was an interesting feeling because you don't really think until you're
faced
faced with death, you never really think that you really want to live, And
it shows you how precious life is, I was watching this movie last night. Did you see Chi-Town?
No, I haven't.
No. Really good movie, man. It was about this NBA player from Chicago, growing up in the ghetto, and it was basically a documentary about all of his friends that were killed in drug gangs or going to prison. And the biggest shock was like when he just went away to a semester at college to go play basketball, and then he just gets a phone call that his dad had a massive heart attack and was dead.
Oh.
Just like that, at like 55 years old.
Right.
And like as soon as they said that, like that's my biggest fear. Like I'm an only child. Like my parents are just like the only family, you know. Like, and like just to show how fast it could happen, you know. Like it's just it's terrifying.
Yeah. So every day I would reflect on the fact that I could die today.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
Right. That's actually one of the 5 recollections that you're supposed to have as a monk.
What are the other ones?
I actually have them on my phone.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I should like know them by heart, but like I'm too tired right now.
Yeah.
But first one is I'm sure to be old, become old, and then so you cannot avoid aging, and then I'm sure to become ill. I cannot avoid illness. I'm sure to die. I cannot avoid death.
These are pretty depressing so far.
I must be separated from everything I love at some point.
Wow.
And I am the owner of my actions and heir to my actions. Basically, you reap what you sow.
Personal responsibility, yeah.
You know? So these are the 5 things that the Buddha said that monks should reflect on every single day. Yeah, I do reflect on these things.
What's your daily meditation practice like now? Outside of the
now
monastery?
I don't have as much time. I mean, I was meditating like 10 hours a day
Wow.
at the temple, but like, yeah, I don't have as much time now. But yeah, I just do stuff like this, kind of, recalling or contemplating these kinds of things in the morning, and oftentimes what's interesting is when you meditate on death, you have a great sense of gratitude for life.
Right.
Naturally it comes.
Yeah,
So
I
you
totally agree.
you don't have to kind of be like, oh, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful for that.
It's just natural.
It just comes, you know.
I can attest to that. I actually did a podcast episode like literally right when I left the hospital that night, after just almost like, choking to death. And I just like was just kind of like verbal, just spewing my thoughts of just like, wow, like I'm alive, like I'm just like so grateful. And then the crazy thing is like literally like I've always wanted to do this, just book a ticket, like an international ticket somewhere, anywhere, the day that it was leaving. Okay. And I did that same week.
Really?
So like,
where'd you go?
Friday I finished work at 1 o'clock. I booked a ticket at 3 o'clock, and I was flying to Taiwan at like 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Just like 3 hours before the flight left.
Wow.
And I went to Taiwan for like 7 days. Last week, this is like a week, like I was in Taiwan last week.
It's pretty nice.
So I just did it, just like, why not, like,
Nice.
you don't know how long you have, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of like puts things in a perspective, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why I made the film as well, is you really don't know how long you have left, and you might as well, even though it's really, really difficult. I don't want to turn people off from making films or whatever. It is very, very difficult.
Imagine.
It takes a long time to do.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you have one life.
Yeah.
You might as well try to do something that you think is cool.
Yeah. And that's all that matters is if you think it's cool, who
Right.
cares what everyone else thinks or says? Like, if you want to go and, live in a monastery, or if you want to go surfing the biggest waves in the world or whatever, like people watching, whatever you want to do, like just fucking do it. Because like, you don't know. There might be a water buffalo, or you might get stung by something in the middle of the forest in Thailand, or you might choke on your next meal, So, man, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap this up. I want to be mindful of your time. And is there anything else you want to share about the film, or your experience in Busan, or what you're looking at next, your next project, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just this is the beginning.
Awesome.
This is actually really the beginning of what's going to happen. So, I don't know. I might get deported from Japan. I don't know what's going to happen.
You never know.
But I don't think that Japanese people will hate this movie as much as some of them hated my YouTube video. I gave the right wing a voice in this film, so and I didn't twist their words or anything. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And this is me. I don't know really anything about all this. This is my first time learning about this, so I'm just like trying to hear from everyone. Like I'm just students of the world, basically. On that subject, talking about things like Alex Jones, people like getting people have a right to share their opinion. but it seems like a lot of governments, like you say now, or big business and big data and stuff, are just like kind of clamping down on that.
Alex Jones not being able to
and just like
have a podcast anymore. You mean?
Well, not just that. Like a lot of people that are sharing their views politically are getting literally like kind of death threats and stuff like that. Like it's a pretty heavy, and it takes a lot of balls to do what you did, and other people that are out there standing up for what they believe. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't. About the Alex Jones thing, I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely not for censorship.
Yeah.
Although I don't think Alex Jones' like stuff is always the best
Right.
thing in the world, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of
It's just the principle of it, you
right?
know? Like
Exactly.
that's what I meant by that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people go and check out your future work, your current and past stuff, and I think that
thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I'm glad that it worked out, and like I said, you're going back to Japan this weekend. I'm going to Seoul tomorrow, so I'm glad that we got this. I'm going for a conference for 3 days, so
okay, cool.
This is kind of the window that we had, so I appreciate you for coming on out.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
All the best.
Thanks. You too.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Go ahead, leave a comment. I'll have Miki's information below. Have a look at some of his projects and other content he's created. Go ahead and follow him, find out what he's up to. And once again, subscribe, share this, like it, and see you on the next episode. Peace.